Imagine feeling seen and appreciated by someone outside your marriage only to realize that it's a wake-up call for what's missing at home. Today, we explore why this happens and how to reignite that spark with your spouse. Stay tuned. Hey parents, welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. Do you want to raise your kids better and have a stronger marriage? Are you up late at night researching marriage and parenting tools and self-care tips? Do you start each day hoping for deeper connections and less chaos, but it ends with family arguments and going 12 different directions again? My name's Kendra, wife, mom, therapist, and growth enthusiast. It wasn't until I discovered how to fulfill my unmet needs that I was finally able to show up as my best self, as a spouse and parent. I realized that by meeting my needs, I could more fully meet the needs of my family, with more energy and less resentment. In this podcast, I teach parents skills like boundary setting, prioritizing personal needs, communication, and claiming ownership. Just like my clients, you'll be shocked by the improvement in your marriage, parenting, and personal life when you focus on fulfilling your important unmet needs. Ready to prioritize yourself so you can quit mentally throat punching people? Then grab those earbuds and head outside, and let's walk and talk. Welcome back to Fulfillment Therapy, where we focus on improving your mental health, wellness, and life fulfillment for both you and your family. I'm your host, Kendra Nielsen, and today we're talking about something that many parents and spouses face but rarely talk about. And that's feeling emotionally disconnected in marriage, especially when life feels so overwhelming. I was reminded about this when recently several of my clients came forward and shared this, and you could tell that it was laced with a lot of shame and discomfort. Like they didn't even want to talk about it in session, which is the one place you feel like you could talk about this. But it made me wonder again how much this actually happens in relationships because it's coming up so much in therapy, and those are the ones that actually share it. So the chances are pretty high that this is something that you've experienced before as well. But today we're going to talk about why that emotional connection fades and what to do when you feel drawn to someone outside the marriage and how to rekindle that spark with your spouse. So recently I had a client that talked about how she was scared how much she was enjoying a conversation with another man that was not her husband. And she said it was so nice to feel seen and appreciated in ways she hadn't felt for years inside of her marriage. She was very embarrassed to tell me these things, but as we explored it and talked about it and took away the shame aspect, but instead focused on why this was coming up and normalized that this happens to a lot of people. In this situation, she hadn't done anything that could be conceived as a sin or being unfaithful or any of those things, but she was starting to notice that she was excited to see this person. She was excited to have those conversations. She even unconsciously was getting ready more in anticipation of seeing him. And once she realized it, she was filled with a lot of embarrassment and that shame. So we talked about that. We broke it down, and I'll go back to the story in just a minute. But now, before I tell you more about my client and her story, I want to talk about why that emotional connection fades. Let's first start with what that emotional connection is. That's when we feel seen, we feel heard, we feel valued, and we feel safe with our partner or our spouse. And over time, because of parenting stress or busy schedules or unresolved conflicts especially, that can erode the bond. So instead, you have this building volcano for a myriad of reasons. And in that space, you start to feel less seen. You start to feel less appreciated. Another one of my clients told me how their spouse used to leave them really nice notes and compliment them regularly. And now their conversations really revolve mostly around things like bills and schedules. And that has been missing in her life, and she felt this sense of loss for that. Dr. Sue Johnson said the drama of love is all about this hunger for safe emotional connection, a survival imperative we experience from the cradle to the grave. So don't just think this is a teenager thing, my friends. This is definitely until we're in our 90s and beyond. We crave that safe emotional connection, like she was talking about, no matter our age or our maturity or what has or has not happened in our relationship. We want that deeper connection. We want to feel that we matter, and our spouse wants that too. So, is it any wonder that there is this allure when we feel seen by someone else? Maybe it's just been slowly happening over time that we feel less seen and less appreciated at home. And so it's natural to feel drawn to someone who does notice you and your strengths and makes you feel valued instead of accentuating your flaws and being more irritated with you as they know you for years and years. Maybe they're pointing out more of your flaws because that is the thing that's frustrating them. And they do love the good things about you, but over time, those might have become more muted. Now, before you villainize your spouse, look internally too. How much do you help your spouse to feel seen and heard and valued? We all do it. It's that natural breakdown of something unless we are actively building it up. Again, if you feel that allure of feeling seen by someone else, it doesn't mean you want to have an affair. Maybe a few of you may want that, but it just means you're craving that appreciation, and that's normal. I'm not telling you to dive into that more and just rationalize that it's normal. That will likely go down a path that you'll regret, but it is something to be aware of. I had a friend recently tell me that she felt guilty looking forward to conversations with a coworker who complimented her on some of her skills at work, and it was something that her spouse hadn't done in years or even really seen her in that role, and it felt good to be noticed and appreciated. So, because of the complexity of these feelings, it often brings that guilt and that shame that I mentioned, but also highlights that unmet need in your marriage. And that's a step that most people don't realize when they come in and talk to me about it. Instead, they think, oh, does this mean I'm not happy? I'm not enjoying my life. I need to change everything. I need a divorce. I'm a terrible person. I need to go repent. All of these things, they start to go to worst case scenarios. But we break it down, and what we find pretty much every time is there's a lot of hope in this. It's just information that will help us with those next steps. So maybe in your heart, you're blaming your spouse for not appreciating you more or validating you more or seeing the good in you. Sue Johnson says this about that. Most of the blaming is a desperate attachment cry, a protest against disconnection. So are you feeling disconnected? If you are blaming, I'm not saying jump into that blame, but step back from it for a second and recognize that you just want to connect with your spouse again. And there's things that we can do about that. The key here is to rebuild that emotional intimacy. Start small yourself instead of focusing on someone you can't control. Focus on your side of the street. And that's by showing appreciation and affection. Compliment your spouse and thank them for something specific they've done and make it sincere and honest. I often get off track with this, so I start to write it in my journal, just a few things every night that I appreciate about my spouse, and I make an effort to point those things out. And if I'm starting to get off track, that's the time that I need to be more proactive about it. Or I put it down in my habit tracker and I put it in my planner, so it's part of my regular routine. In counseling couples, I often recommend that they share one thing that they appreciate about each other each night before bed. So it's very simple, just takes a couple minutes a day. And over time, this reignites those feelings of gratitude and connection, of feeling seen and heard and valued and appreciated. Now, when you do this, a little disclaimer here, it's important that you put down your phone eyes and look into their eyes and validate any feelings or experience they might be having instead of trying to fix anything. If this becomes more of a conversation or even a side thing, be present. Show that you care. Otherwise, these words don't matter very much if your actions aren't showing that you think they matter. I have another quote by Dr. Sue Johnson. She's amazing and she helps couples connect a lot. But she said, a major part of keeping love alive is recognizing moments of connection and holding them up where you can both see them. Isn't that great? So again, recognizing those moments of connection, because they do happen, and holding them up where you can both see them. Another thing that I do for my couples is I have this bids worksheet, and I'll try to remember to put that on the website if you want to check that out, and also in the show notes. But it's this thing where I have them break down the bids that they want that are very meaningful to them. And then their spouse does the same thing, and they try to do more of those things. And then they track it. So at the end of every day and the end of every week, they share those bids that were meaningful, that they both put in to keep that relationship more alive and to really value each other and put that extra effort into it. And then over a 30-day period, they explore what they liked the most. The other part I like about that is you share what you notice, but then your spouse also adds. I was also really intentional about doing this other thing that I know that you appreciate and is important to you. And when you hear both of those things, it's like that double amount of recognizing, hey, they're really trying here to deepen our connection and our relationship and are putting those deposits into the relationship so that we can deepen our connection. And that really helps the relationship thrive. Now, remember earlier when I talked about resentment? It's also very key here to address that resentment and that hurt. Because if you let that fester, it's very difficult to give sincere compliments and to value the other person, to help them feel seen and heard, when instead you're just feeling angry and resentful. I had one couple that I was working with that told their spouse, I miss how we used to laugh together, and I feel like we're more roommates now more than ever, and that I don't matter to you as much as the kids do. And as she was more open and honest about that, they'd explored what they could do to resolve that. And that honesty opened that door for change. And without that, it would not have happened. So how can you be more vulnerable, and what does that mean? That's where you have that courage to express your needs, your fears, and trust that your spouse or your partner will respond with care. Maybe they don't always respond in the best way, but they can keep trying and you can give them grace as they try. A simple thing that you can do that I've mentioned before is use those I statements. And here's just a quick example. I feel lonely when we don't spend time together. I'd like to have more date nights. I'd like to deepen that connection so that I feel like we're a team instead of doing things separately all the time. Another simple thing you can do is create new traditions together, maybe especially if you've been married for a while and you're feeling stuck and stagnant. So you can rekindle that romance by introducing new rituals that bring joy and connection into your relationship. So that might be on Friday night, you have a candlelit dinner after putting the kids to bed, and that can become a sacred time to reconnect. Maybe that's starting a new hobby that neither of you have done before, or revisiting old memories of things that you've liked, like looking through photo books or making a plan for doing more of the things that you've loved in the past. Stan Tatkin said, successful long-term relationships are created through small words, small gestures, and small acts. I love that because it does not have to be big. Sometimes as parents, anything big feels overwhelming, but we can do small things. All right, here are the key takeaways from today's episode. Emotional connection fades when we stop prioritizing our relationship in the middle of life's crazy demands as parents. Feeling drawn to somebody else often signals those unmet emotional needs in our marriage and not a desire for infidelity. It's pretty normal, my friends. And if you really want to rebuild that intimacy, show appreciation, practice that active listening, and be vulnerable about your feelings. Use those I feel statements instead of resorting to blame, and start pointing out the good instead of just the shadows in your spouse. And last but not least, start by creating small, simple new traditions or things that can deepen connection in your relationship. And if you haven't yet, please just see a counselor, even if it's just a session here, a session there. You are not a failure if you seek a third party. You are humble, you are teachable, you are wise. So lean into that, even if you're a little embarrassed. And honestly, when you're starting out, nobody needs to know. Actually, you never have to tell anybody. Telehealth makes it so easy. You can schedule a therapist far away from you that you've never met before, will never cross paths with before, and you never have to leave your home. So if you're a little bit sheepish, there's ways around that, and you can still get the help that you need. My friends, if you felt connected to somebody outside of your marriage, remember that emotional intimacy is not lost forever. This is somewhat normal, but it does need attention. It does need effort. It's a sign that something is amiss and something needs tweaking to deepen that connection in your relationship instead of creating wedges that could eventually lead somewhere where you do not want it to go. Prioritize reconnecting today because it matters not only for you, but for your kids and future family as well. All right, my friends, that is all I have for today. Don't forget to check out our amazing courses that over deliver 10 times their value on fulfillmenttherapy.org. We have a personal growth course, a marriage course, a parenting course, and 3 courses that will help you launch your own podcast if you want to help others become their best selves as well. So check those out, and we will have some major savings coming soon. So stay tuned for that and sign up for our emails to be one of the first to get that discount. And you can do that on our website as well. Again, all of this will be in the show notes, and we will see you back here in just a few days on Mondays and Thursdays with new episodes. Until then. Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you. No matter what your house or your hair looks like, I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.